It seems like Jimi Hendrix is back in the news and everyone is talking about it. WA State finally admitted what music fans had known for more than 50 years. Things are getting really big on stages across America for the first time since before COVID. Musicians are vying to be a part of it, and one great is even coming out of retirement to do it. What's going on with Jimi Hendrix right now is making the internet go crazy. He was born in Seattle on November 27, 1942. He was born to Al and Lucille. They had trouble with money and fought a lot. Lizzie was only 17 years old when Jimi was born. Al served in the Army in Alabama. When he asked for time off, he was locked up for more than a month and couldn't go home. Jimmy's childhood was a mess. Both of my parents drank a lot. Their house was not stable. 4 of his brothers were taken by the government and put in care. James was sent to California to stay with a family friend for a short time. When Al got home from the war in 1945, he took Jimi back to Seattle. Al and Lucille split up in 1951. Al took care of Jimi and Leon, his younger brother. It was 1958 when Lucille died of liver cancer. Jimi was 15 years old. The boys weren't allowed to go to the funeral by Al. He gave them booze instead and said, "This is how men deal with loss." At that time, Jimi found comfort in music. It had always interested him. He used to carry a broom around school and act like it was a guitar. A social worker saw him and asked the school if they could buy him one, but nothing come of it. He found the broken ukulele with only one string when he was 15 years old and helping his dad clean out a house in 1957. The woman who lived there told him he could keep it. Jimi used Elvis Presley songs to teach himself how to play. Al finally got a real guitar after his mother died. It was his way out. He learned on his own while listening to blues and early rock. He quit Garfield High School when he was 17 years old in 1959. He only cared about music. He played in bands in the area such as the Rocking Kings and the Velvetones. He didn't have a steady job and often had trouble making ends meet. He slept in empty cars sometimes, but he never stopped playing. He paid close attention to other artists. Butch Snipes played the guitar with his teeth. It became part of Jimi's act after he copied the move. In 1961, when Jimi was 19, he was caught riding in a stolen car. He was locked up for a week. He could either go to jail or join the Army. He joined the Army and was put in the 101st Airborne Division. Hendrix liked the Screaming Eagles because of how well known they were. During World War II, this division fought in the D-Day landing. At Fort Ord in California, he began his basic training. By August 1961, he was done with training and had become a private. At that point, he was sent to Fort Campbell in Kentucky. His life in the Army was hard. He didn't like how things were set up or the rules. He wrote to his dad and told him how much he hated being in the service. His red Danelectro guitar, which he named Betty Jean, was the only thing that kept him going. He played it all the time. Bill Cox was another soldier that Hendrix met at Fort Campbell. Cox played the bass. Music brought them together right away, and they became good friends. They got together and made a band called the King Casuals. They started putting on shows near the base and sometimes in towns close. His plans for the future began even while he was in the military. He was only in the Army for 13 months before he got out in 1962. The official reason was that he hurt his ankle on his 26th parachute jump. The Army told him he could no longer get through it physically, but other records show that his performance was not up to par. He didn't do his bed checks, slept through his shifts, failed shot drills, and did poorly in physical training. Some news stories even said he seemed gay, which at the time could get someone released. Hendrix still got an honorable release despite all of this. They went to Clarksville, Tennessee after Hendrix got out of the war. They were eager to keep making music. They played in small places and kept the name King Casuals. Before Hendrix made his own style, this was the time. When he played the guitar, he turned it over so that the right hand was facing down. He began to do tricks too, like playing with his teeth and behind his head. There was a lot of pressure to entertain. Down there, you have to play with your teeth or else you get shot, Hendrix once said. He meant that the crowd expected more than just skill. They wished for a show. You didn't get asked back if you didn't stand out. Some band leaders didn't like how flashy he was and thought he was trying to get all the attention. But Hendrix kept making his show better. He was a backup guitarist on the Chitlin circuit from 1962 to 1965. During segregation, this was a list of places in the South, Midwest, and East Coast where black artists could play. Things were not going well. Often the pay was very little or none at all. Bob Rush, who also played on the tour, said that they were paid in food sometimes. In January 1964, Jimi Hendrix didn't know what to do. He had played behind other artists for years, living under their radar and following their rules. He wants to have more say over his music and job now. He then made a choice. He quit the backup gigs and moved into Harlem's Hotel Teresa. It was there that he met Lithophane Pridgon. She was known as Faye. He became her boyfriend because she was in the Harlem music scene. He had a place to stay. She helped him and she pushed him to keep going. He also met Arthur and Albert Allen around that time. Their family had been in Harlem clubs for a long time. Hendrix began playing in small places and filling in for other bands all over the city in an effort to get known. He took part in the open night event at the Apollo Theater in February 1964. He came in first. That made him feel better. That showed he could handle a big group by himself. A friend from the Joe Tex band helped him get an audition with Ronnie Isley not long after that win. He liked Hendrix so much that he hired him to play guitar in the Isley Brothers backing band. He said yes right away. It was a big step forward. Hendrix made his first recording track in March 1964. The song was called Testify and had two parts. The Isley Brothers were on it. The song came out in June, but it didn't do well on the charts. It was a start, though. He played guitar on Don Covey's Mercy Mercy in May. It was released in August and got to number 35 on the Billboard list. Many months of 1964 were spent on tour with the Isleys. By October, though, he was sick of playing the same set every night. His mind was set on something else, so he quit the band. Not long after that, he joined Little Richard's traveling band, the Upsetters. They went to Los Angeles in February 1965. There, Hendrix and Little Richard cut a single called I Don't Know What You Got, But It's Got Me. Don Covey wrote the song and it came out on VJ Records. It only got to number 92 on the charts for 1 week. Little Richard wasn't as well known at that point. Pink Floyd met Rosalie Brooks, a musician, while they were both staying at the Wilcox Hotel in Hollywood. He was asked to play guitar on her song, A-Side My Diary and B-Side U.T. Arthur Lee wrote both songs. Hendrix laid down the guitar on both songs and even got to know Lee while they were recording. Hendrix later became a big fan of Lee's band Love after they became friends. The first time Hendrix was seen on TV was in July 1965. That clip is the first known video of Hendrix playing live. It was on Night Train, a local show on Nashville's WLAC-TV. He played with Little Richard's band and backed up singers Buddy and Stacy on the song Shotgun. But things were not going well with Little Richard. They often fought. It was fun for Hendrix to show off on stage. He dressed in flashy clothes that didn't go with Richard's style. Hendrix was fired from the band by Richard's brother Robert at the end of July. It was July 27, 1965, when Hendrix signed his first music deal. It was with Juggy Murray at Sue Records and Copa, a marketing firm. After that, he joined the Isley Brothers again for a short time and made another song. It was Move Over and Let Me Dance, with Have You Ever Been Disappointed on the flip side. After the year was over, Hendrix met Curtis Knight at a hotel. Knight was in charge of an R&B group called the Squires. Hendrix moved in with them for 8 months. They cut How Would You Feel with Welcome Home on the B-side in October 1965. But on October 15, 1965, Hendrix signed a deal with Sue Records for 2 years. And he signed another one. This one was with a man named Ed Chalpin, and it was for 3 years. The deal lasted longer than the relationship. Hendrix had trouble with it later in his career. Hendrix worked with other acts between gigs with Curtis Knight and the Squires. He went on tour with the Starlighters and Joey D. He made a song with King Curtis. That track was split into. He also played on Ray Sharp's song Help Me. Hey Hey, in 1966, Hendrix got his first credit for writing a song. Hornet's Nest and Knock Yourself Out are two acoustic songs that he wrote. Each was put out as a single by Curtis Knight and the Squires. Hendrix was ready to leave the R&B scene by 1966. He went to New York's Greenwich Village. It felt very creative in that area. It had new ideas, artists, and songs in it. Hendrix was hired to play at Cafe Wah, there on MacDougal Street. Jimmy James and the Blue Flames is the name of the new band he formed. Randy California was a member, and he went on to form the band Spirit. The Blue Flames played all over New York. His sound changed because of those shows. He began to try out new styles and moves on stage. The band's last shows together were in September 1966 at Manhattan's Cafe Au Go-Go. At that point, they were singing backup for a singer named John Hammond. Jimi Hendrix arrived at London Airport on September 24, 1966, with almost nothing. He borrowed $40.00, had a change of clothes, hair curlers, and a guitar with him. The new name for the airport was Heathrow. This trip would change Hendrix's life, but he didn't know it yet. In the beginning of that summer, he played small shows in New York City as Jimmy James. One night at Cafe Wah, former Animals bassist Chaz Chandler saw him play in Greenwich Village. Chandler wanted to hire new people. After seeing Hendrix play, he knew he had found something rare. It only took 12 days for the Jimi Hendrix experience to come together after Jimmy got to London. It took place on October 6, 1966. Chandler quickly got bands to come in. He tried out for the new Animals and met Noel Redding there. Jimmy liked how Redding understood how blues songs built on each other. He also liked the way his hair was styled. Mitch Mitchell was called by Chandler for the drummer. Mitchell had just been fired from his job with Georgie fame and the Blue Flames. He and Jimmy became friends because they both liked rhythm and blues music. Chandler also helped make Jimmy look like that. He said that Jimmy should be spelled Jimmy instead. It changed the way the name looked and made it more special. Right away, the band began to play. After only a week, they went on tour with French singer Johnny Hallyday for 4 shows in France. They made their first song, Hey Joe, at Delaney Studios in London on October 23. James had been in England for less than a month. It wasn't easy to record, though. The studio tools had trouble with their loud Marshall amps. Jimmy was also scared about singing. Stone Free, the single's B-side, was taken on November 2nd. It was Jimmy's first written song with the band. As a way for Jimmy to make money from printing rights, Chandler told him to write it. It was hard for them to get a record deal, even though they were very good. Kit Lambert and Chris Stamp, who were the Who's agents, finally signed them to their new label, Track Records. The first record from Track came out on December 16, 1966, through Polydor. This was because the band was still new. Hey Joe went straight to number 41 on the UK charts. It stayed on the chart for 10 weeks and got to number 6. He was also on TV shows like Ready, Steady, Go and Top of the Pops played the song, which made it more well-known. Just a few months before, he played guitar in small bars in New York as a backup. He was now a star. Chandler Chess had a plan. He meant for the right people to see Hendrix play. Just 1 week after Jimi got there, on October 1, 1966, Chandler took him to see Cream play at London Polytechnic. He asked to be able to join them on stage. They agreed. The crowd was shocked when he played Killing Floor by Howlin' Wolf. Eric Clapton was not on stage. He was shocked and silent after the song. As he lit a cigarette, he told Chandler, "You never told me he was that good." Jimi was putting on shows at the Bagonel's Club by the middle of November. Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Mick Jagger, Jeff Beck, Pete Townsend, and Brian Jones were among the famous people in the crowd. They had no idea what they were seeing. Ayers Kevin remembered the scene and said that everyone was yelling because they were so shocked. At that point, Jimi and his girlfriend Kathy Etchingham moved into 34 Montague Square. Ringo Starr owned the apartment. Chandler and his partner lived there too. Jimi played at fancy bars like the Scotch of St. James, which is close to Buckingham Palace. The Rolling Stones and the Beatles each had their own table. Chandler had finished what he had planned. In just 2 months, he made Hendrix the song that everyone in London talked about. Still, not everything went as planned. Jimi was very serious about his music and had strong ideas about how it should sound. When they were making the first tracks for Hey Joe, Chandler told him to turn down the amps. That caused a big temper tantrum. It was too dangerous for Jimi to work there, he yelled. He said it would be best to go back to New York. Chandler didn't get upset. He had Jimi's passport and return flight ticket in his pocket and had just come from the visa office. He put them on the mixing desk and told them, "Now go back to America." He may have just said "piss off" in another version. Jimi laughed and said, "Okay, you called my bluff." That moment decided how they would work together. Jimi wanted to be free. Chandler let him be alone, but he also made sure everything went as planned. It really changed things on June 18, 1967 at the Monterey Pop Festival. The night was warm, but in the U.S., most people still didn't know who Hendrix was. He had become famous in London. He was aware that this show might make a big difference. When the Who were done playing, they smashed their instruments. Jimi had to do even more important things. Someone on stage helped him get lighter fluid before he went on. It was hidden behind his amp. The crowd met him through Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones. Jimi played Wild Thing at the end of his set. He got down on his knees, flipped his guitar, and said into the mic, "Man, I'm going to give up something I really love." He then put lighter fluid on his Stratocaster and lit it on fire. It was broken 7 times, and he threw the hot bits into the crowd. Ed Correa, a photographer, caught the moment. It became one of the most well-known pictures in rock history. Hendrix became famous in his own country after that night. After the show, music writer Robert Christgau said that this show started a new and strong guitar style that hasn't been matched since. Jimi's first record was also a big deal. In the UK, Are You Experienced came out on May 12, 1967. It was number 2 on the British charts for 33 weeks, just behind Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Purple Haze, Hey Joe, and The Wind Cries Mary were missing from the UK version. Instead, it had bluesy songs like Red House that showed Hendrix roots. Jimi didn't like the record cover for the UK. When he did well at Monterey, Reprise Records put out a new version of the record in the U.S. on August 23, 1967. It came out in America with different songs and new trippy art on the cover by Carl Ferris. This version had the hit songs on it, but Red House, Remember, and Can You See Me were taken out. The song Purple Haze only got to number 65 in the US, but the album was a huge hit on underground FM radio. It got to number 5 on the Billboard album chart and stayed there for 106 weeks, spending 76 of those weeks in the top 40. It also spent 70 weeks at number 10 on the Billboard R&B list. At the time, $20.00 was a lot of money to spend on advertising a record. Jimi Hendrix was very famous in 1968. Electric Ladyland came out on October 16th, his first record that he made himself from start to finish. It was a double album. It was his only record to ever go to number 1 on the Billboard lists. He had come a long way with songs like All Along the Watchtower by Bob Dylan, Voodoo Child, Slight Return, and Crosstown Traffic. The song Watchtower was his only top 20 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. Dylan said that Hendrix heard things in the song that no one else did. This record was also a sign that things were getting worse. Jimi was no longer working with Chas Chandler, who brought him to England in the first place. He wanted to be in charge more. He became so interested in the sound that he played bass most of the time instead of Noel Redding. His desire to be perfect was taking over. He and his partner Michael Jeffrey bought the Generation Club in Greenwich Village in 1968. At first, they wanted to turn it back into a music place. Then they found out that Jimi was spending almost $300,000, 0 cents a year, on recording time. That's why they chose to build their own company. The business was known as Electric Lady Studios. John Storick, an engineer, made it to fit Jimi's style. There were no rough edges in the rooms. Soft lights, round windows, and bright paintings were all there. It was meant to feel calm and artistic. But there were problems with the project. Even though Jimi was making up to $100, 0 cents a show at places like Madison Square Garden, it wasn't enough. To finish, it took twice as long and almost $1 million, 0 cents, by the end of 1970. That was Jimi's first show there on June 15, 1970. It was fun to jam with Steve Winwood and Chris Wood from Traffic. He made a recording of Nightbird Flying the next day. The studio opened for business on August 25th. He had already left for England, though. He didn't come back. He never saw the studio again after it was done. That summer, the Jimi Hendrix experience came to an end. They played their last show at the Denver Pop Festival on June 29, 1969. Over 3 days, the event was held at Mile High Stadium. It cost $6, 0 cents a day, or $15, 0 cents for the whole weekend. Artists like Joe Cocker and Creedence Clearwater Revival played on it. James Brown told the press that day that Billy Cox would be his new bassist. He knew Cox from the Army. Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding didn't know that the band was breaking up. About 2,500 people who were trying to get into the stadium got into a fight with cops. To keep the crowd under control, police used tear gas. A gust of gas came into the stadium. The band and Jimi had to leave the stage quickly. They got away in a panel van, but fans quickly circled it out of fear. The roof began to fall in. Mitchell said after the fact that they thought they were going to be crushed. Noel Redding took a plane back to England the next day. The first experience was over at that point. In the fall of that year, Jimi played Woodstock, originally planned for Sunday night, August 17, 1969. He was to end the show, but it ran late. Jimi didn't hit the stage until 8 a.m. on August 18th, Monday. A lot of people had left. About 30,000 of the 400 people who came to Woodstock were still there. There was a fight behind the scenes over whether Jimi should play the Star-Spangled Banner. He didn't want to, Michael Jeffrey said. It scared him that the song might start another fight like it did in Dallas. Even though Jeffrey was no longer there, Jimi was told to do it by music producer Jerry Morrison. Jimmy got on stage and played the national song in a way that no one had ever heard it before. His guitar played bombs, alarms, and screams. It was loud, strange, and something I will never forget. A few people thought it had to do with politics. Jimmy said it wasn't later. It was just how he felt, he said. Things began to change for Jimi Hendrix in 1966. He took LSD for the first time that year. After that, no one had ever heard his music before it started to sound different. Kathy Etchingham, Jimmy's girlfriend, said that he started getting dreams and wanted to make music out of them. Many times, it didn't make sense when he tried to explain them to other people. These thoughts had nothing to do with the real world, but when he played guitar, they came to life. He kept going through the new door that LSD had opened for him. He didn't hide anything. He started taking acid during shows in 1967 when he walked on stage at the Monterey Pop Festival. He was high on LSD. He burned his guitar that night. It shocked everyone and made news all over the world. It wasn't just for show, though. It was a sign of how far he was willing to go. He was after something more important than music. As the 1960s came to a close, he used LSD all the time. It was the same with cocaine, weed, hemp, and amphetamines. He always had these drugs with him on tour. They changed the way he sounded. That's where songs like Purple Haze came from. Strange stories that sounded like dreams were told on songs like 1983. A Merman I Should Turn to Be. Charles Cross, a biographer, said that Jimmy was one of the few stars who had a lot to do with the drug society. The crazy world he lived in showed up in his music. But he had another side that not many people saw. Hendrix had a big problem with drinking. Something changed after he drank. His friends and family said he got angry. There was no longer any peace and quiet. In the late 1960s, one of the worst times happened. When he was drunk and angry, he hit his girlfriend Carmen Barrero with a vodka bottle. She had to get stitches for the cut above her eye. He began drinking early. In July 1962, after getting out of the Army, he drank a lot and spent almost all of his $400 0 cents cash. He said that some people told him he was stupid when he drank. The problem got worse as he became more well-known, though. During trips, he was arrested more than once for getting into fights while drunk. People who knew him well said that drinking changed him. Someone said it was the worst curse they had ever heard. It made her mood swings and sometimes violent attacks, which wasn't like the person people saw on stage. Then he was arrested in Toronto. Hendrix arrived at Toronto International Airport on May 3, 1969. Police at customs stopped him and looked in his bag and found small amounts of heroin and marijuana. They put him in jail at 1:30 p.m. He was freed later that same day on $10,000 0 cents bail after tests showed the drugs were real. He had a show at Maple Leaf Gardens that night. He changed the words during Red House to say, "As soon as I get out of jail, I want to see her." The charges were very bad. In court on May 5, he was charged with 2 counts of drug possession. Up to 20 years in jail were possible for each charge. After the fact, his friends Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell said they were told about the planned bust the day before. They thought that someone put the drugs there. In December 1969, Hendrix had to cut his hair short and put on a suit for his trial. 3 days were spent on the trial. He was found not guilty after the jury talked about it for 8 hours. He smiled and waved a peace sign outside the building. "Canada has given me the best Christmas present I ever had," he said. But being free didn't make things better. Hendrix arrived in Gothenburg, Sweden on September 3, 1970, while on tour in Europe. Eva Sundquist met him that day. She said that he was the father of her son James. The child was born on January 5, 1970. She said they were together at his show in Stockholm in January 1969. Somebody had made a claim like this before, but this time it was even worse. Hendrix was already very tired, high on drugs, and mentally worn out. The show that night was a mess. He forgot the words. He went from one song to the next. Some people in the crowd said he looked totally lost. After 2 weeks, it was over. His girlfriend, Monica Danneman, was with him on the night of September 17. They drank wine at her London room in the Samarkand Hotel. They got back around 3 a.m. after going to a party. Monica said that they talked until around 7 a.m. and then slept. After that, Jimmy took 9 Vesperax pills to help him sleep. It was 18 times the usual dose. Due to its high strength, the drug was later banned in many places. That last few days before he died, Hendrix was sick. He was tired and most likely had the flu. He also didn't trust the people around him as much. He didn't know what to do with his life after the music business trapped him. He was only 27 years old. Along with Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Brian Jones, and later Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse, he was in the Sad 27 Club. It happened on September 18, 1970, at 11:18 a.m. He called for an ambulance to come to the hotel. After 9 minutes, it showed up. The team saw that the door was open. There was still a gas fire going. Hendrix was in bed. He was covered in puke. All of his lungs were shut. Monica wasn't there, which was strange because she later said she never left his side. Reg Jones, who works as an ambulance driver, said it was one of the worst things he had ever seen. The puke was very dark, almost black, and it got all the way through the pillow. Hendrix was taken to St. Mary Abbott's to get better. It was too late for doctors to bring him back to life. The police said he was dead at 12:45 p.m. Thoughts were still there. John Bannister, a surgeon, said that Hendrix's lungs and stomach let out a lot of red wine. He thought that Hendrix had drowned at the hotel or on the way to the hospital, but tests by toxicology showed that he didn't have much booze in his blood. In 1992, new questions led to a study by a private group. Scotland Yard looked into the case again and talked to everyone involved. The case was closed again in 1993. Not a single clear answer was found. In the year 2025, Jimi Hendrix is once again in the news. A lot of people remember him, even though he died more than 50 years ago. He was given the Medal of Merit by the state of Washington on March 18, 2025. This is the most important award the government can give to a regular person. The event took place at Olympia's Capitol building. Vice Governor Denny Heck, Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, and Governor Bob Ferguson gave the award. It was given to Hendrix' family and to the Museum of Pop Culture, which has a full show about his life and songs. Anyone who knows Hendrix knows how important he is in the state and around the world. He was called one of the most important musicians of all time by Governor Ferguson. He said that Hendrix had an effect on music that went far beyond Washington and helped shape current music. Aside from this award in Olympia, there was something else going on in the road. The Experience Hendrix tour came back after being away for 5 years because of the pandemic. A group of artists play Hendrix's songs and talk about his work on the tour, which goes all over. The show is at the Chicago Theater tonight, March 21. It's part of a 33-day tour that goes to big towns all over the U.S. A lot of big stars are on the tour. Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Zakk Wylde, who is known from Pantera and Black Label Society, are both on stage. Eric Johnson is also in the group. Marcus King, Devon Allman, Samantha Fish, and Christone Kingfish Ingram are also in the same group. Even though each artist has their own sound, they all work together to honor Hendrix music. At the last show on April 12th, A special guest will be there. At the Fox Theater in Atlanta, the show will come to an end. Buddy Guy, a major blues star, will be back on stage that night. He is 88 years old and said last year that he was stopping travel. This show is one of a kind. Even more important is the fact that Buddy Guy is the only person in the list that Hendrix himself said had an impact on him. Buddy Guy wrote something about the event. He said he could still remember meeting Hendrix in 1968 at a club in New York. He said that they became friends, which makes him happy. Now he's back to pay tribute to Hendrix with one last show. For the company, John McDermott is in charge of the collection. He said not long ago that the music is still at the heart of everything they do. He said that the company exists because of Hendrix.